Alrighty, everybody, welcome in. My name is Joe, and we're gonna play some chess. So in this particular game, I have the black pieces. So we'll see what my opponent leads off with. Um, what do I tell you? Just like I said. So I'm gonna do what I recommend. If you are faced with e4, just go ahead and play e5. So we're doing the exact same thing our opponent did. We are controlling the center, and we're stopping white from continuing forward. Now let's see where they go next. Let's see if they follow the same pattern that we usually see, and we see a knight rotate around. But that's okay. We'll figure it out as we go. Now, I want to mention that I'm playing 10 plus 5. What that means is 10 minutes. Each side has 10 minutes on the clock, and then every move you make, you get a 5-second increment added back. This is probably too fast for a training game because you don't have a ton of time to think. This is as fast as I like to play. I don't like to play any faster than this. I don't have any time to think. Um, okay, this is different for me. I've never seen that before this early in the game, so that's okay. We're gonna keep moving on as if we know what we're doing. My opponent's attacking, but I'm defending. Well, what do we want to do? We want to get our knight and our bishop developed. So from the black side of the board, well, that's the b4 square is taken away from me. So I do have access to the c5 square, but my opponent could easily push. Then I just drop back. You know what? That's okay. Let's do that. So we're just going to continue on with our standard plan. But anyway, anything faster than 10 plus 5 is too fast for me. I can't keep up. And typically what you want to do is you want to play slower games so that you have time to process and think and work things through. I like to keep, for recording purposes, I like to keep them fast just so that we have time to talk it out and these videos don't end up being million hours long. So my opponent went for the Ruy Lopez style of opening. It's not the Ruy Lopez because they inserted this A3 move. That's okay. So the Ruy Lopez, one of the things I know about the Ruy Lopez is my opponent is probably going to want to capture there, and that's okay. I'm going to let them. I don't need to do anything right now, actually, since I've gained a tempo. So I'm going to continue developing like I normally would. The one thing I do want to mention is that what is this knight's purpose? Knight's purpose is to defend that pawn. So I'm going to go ahead and defend. I'm going to defend the pawn a second time. So now if my opponent trades off, I am walking into a pin. I am voluntarily going into this pin. So I have to be careful about that. My knight is pinned, but at least I've got this pawn defended an extra time. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and develop my knight. And now I am ready to castle. Make sure I don't get any intrusion sounds in the background on. Sorry about that. All right, so I recommend playing slower games. 15 minutes games is probably the fastest. You know, even faster. I wish I'd had another thing defending. That's okay. There are some tactics, but my opponent's not playing a traditional Ruy Lopez, so I'm not too concerned. They'll have an escape square, and then I'm going to push this pawn here soon. I don't know where I'm going to push the pawn, but I'm going to push the pawn in one of two places. Ah, okay. So now look, my opponent has 2 attackers on this pawn, and I only have it defended once. So I'm going to need to get that pawn defended a second time. Putting your queen in front of your king is a dangerous habit to get into because you could walk into some alignment issues. But I am ready to castle, so I'm going to go ahead and castle here real quick, and that'll take care of any of the concerns I have. I just need to keep that in mind. Now we're castled. Now we're good. I don't know what this is. I'm not at all certain what that move might be. I'm going to go ahead and move my rook underneath my queen. The idea here is that now I can move my queen out of the way and my pawn is still defended. So I'm going to... Notice there's no alignment issues anymore. My opponent has moved their they have not put their rook there yet. If a rook does come there, my queen is free to move. Okay, so this bishop is blocked in a little bit. Is there anything I can do to take advantage of that? Notice there's no more threat here, so a single defender will suffice. Is there any way I could get... Not really. I was thinking if I could get a knight here to attack that bishop can't really go anywhere. But to get a knight there would be a challenge. Be a long walk to get it there. So I'm just going to ignore that for now. And I'm going to go back to the principles. Opening principle says develop, develop, develop. So let's get developed. What do I want to do with this bishop? Let's stick the bishop there. What the heck? Eventually this pawn is going to move, and eventually this rook is going to get moved. All right. So... do I want to capture? Do I care if my opponent captures? I don't care if my opponent captures. So I'm going to continue on with my next plan. My next plan was to start a minority. Basically, I want to start opening up this outside. This gives my bishop a place to hide should my opponent try to attack it. If my opponent were to capture, which I would be okay with, I get to capture back one way or the other. If my opponent pushes past, because you can always push a pawn past, you don't have to trade. If my opponent pushes past, then I get to undouble my pawns and fix my pawn structure. I'd be okay with that too. All right, so my opponent's capturing there. I'm going to capture back. Would have been nice to have my rook over here already. Yeah, I think that pawn move. So if I'm reviewing this game later on, I think this pawn move probably should have been this rook over. Since I knew this trade could happen, this file could open up. That would have been nice to have an immediate attack on their queen. Now this pawn is available for me, and enough stuff has transpired that I'm not worried about that gotcha trap anymore. So I might be able to grab this pawn. Aha, no longer. But yes, I'm trapping my bishop in the same thing my opponent did, but I'm opening up a second attack on this pawn. These are going to get traded off at some point in time. If my opponent pushes past now, I'm still okay, because I will... He's got an attacker here. Oh, he's got two attackers here. Okay, so that's the problem, is... He has two attackers here. I'm trying to see if I can reshuffle my pieces to get a defender on this pawn that's not my queen. No, I don't think I can. So let's start with this, perhaps. If my opponent captures here, no, because then this defends the knight. All right, so I don't really have a good attack. So I'm going to give up this pawn. I might stick my... No, I can't stick my... I got to get the rook over. I got to get the rook involved. I think it's time to get my rook involved. So I'm up a pawn, but I'm about to drop a pawn. So we're going to be even in material. But my opponent's knights are going to be positioned really well. And I'm going to have some issues dislodging them. I hate to give up my bishops, but I might have to trade one of my bishops for a knight. I'm secretly hoping my opponent will capture this way. No, I'm not. It doesn't matter because this square is covered. What did I give up? Oh, that's fine. That's okay. I'm okay with that, actually. That works in my favor because now this is covered. Okay, we got lucky on that one. Now my pawns are back fixed. They are a little ugly. Notice how this is what's now called a backwards pawn, right? This pawn is the weak part of the chain, and I need to keep an eye on it pretty much at all times. So this, like I said, this is a 10+5 game, and you see how quick it can go. All right, that is defended, so I'm comfortable there. Go ahead and get this into play. That comes with an attack on the queen, so my opponent's going to have to move their queen. Question is where. Now this bishop is not a great piece for my opponent. He's going to have to do something to open it up. It's one of the reasons why I'm not capturing here right away, is because as long as this pawn sits here, this bishop is weak. So I'm happy to let that bishop stay weak as long as possible. So I'm just scanning the board now, looking for things that my opponent could do. Right, he could bring the knight around, get a second attacker on that bishop. That's fine. My bishop is very weakly defended right now, so I'd like to get. I don't like where this bishop is placed. I'd like to get it somewhere else. I don't know where yet. Might even bring it all the way back to. I'm gonna say A1, but it's A8. I'm on the black side of the board. A8. Let it sit on this really nice long diagonal, but have it sit back here where it's defended by the rooks. That might be an option. So yeah, I'm thinking my opponent pushes this pawn. Well, first off, they have to move the queen. So where would they move the queen to? Right? If I move the bishop now, though, that gives 2 attackers, and I have 2 defenders, but one of them's my queen, and I'm not happy about that. I'd really like to get my queen somewhere over here. I could trade, actually. Let me think about this for a second. Could trade. Because the only defender of that knight is this pawn, thus weakening my opponent's kingside. Good. Kind of like that, actually. Let's do that. That one of the tactics is basically remove the threat. So that knight was threatening this pawn. There was 2 attackers in that pawn. Yes, I'm giving up my bishop pair, so I no longer have any bishops. But we have we've done it for a purpose. What can I do? What can I do? So this is what's called a rook lift. The question is it now's a good time for a rook lift? I don't know. I'm putting pressure on here and here. There's nothing attacking this bishop, I mean this rook, and I can slide my other rook over. I'm going to do it. Get my other rook ready to go. I'm assuming my opponent's going to push this particular pawn at some point in time in the near future. It's a double attack here, and my only defenders are the queen. If I had these guys reversed, I'd be in a lot better shape. Yep. What did I say? What did I say? Okay. I'm going to start with a pawn push. Now, that's going to basically give my opponent a free pawn, but I'm going to take with check. No, I'm not. Then I can sidestep. Nope. Then this rook comes down, but it is defended. Oh, man, this is getting ugly. This is getting confusing. We're adding another defender here. And we still have this and this under attack. Okay. My rooks are not connected, you guys, so I am a little nervous right now because my rooks are not connected, and that leaves them vulnerable. I really need to pick up some pawns here to claim that I'm in a better position. All right, that's a good move by my opponent. Is there anything I can do to punish this? No. All right, so we're going for the trade, and we're fixing his pawns in the process. Oh, he went with the queen. Okay. Basically, I'm opening up the outside file, which is not exactly what I wanted to do, but I'm connecting my pawns here. I've created a passed pawn. There is no pawns to stop me from marching down the board. This is a passed pawn. My opponent's pawn here is not passed because he's got to get past my other little guy down here. My opponent has 2 attackers, but I have 3 defenders. I'm about to move one of my defenders out of the way, though. See if I can trade off queens. If I can trade off queens, then I'll be in a much better shape. The thing I'm most worried about now is... Nah, not really. So if I push a pawn, my opponent captures, or if they capture with the queen, then I trade queens. Can't do that. No, I can because the knight... So this, I have what's called back rank issues. My wall of pawns defending my king has done its job. But since I've now only got 1 rook left, I have to be careful removing it. This is the only defender of checkmate, essentially. So this knight can sneak in here and be a defender of checkmate as well, so I'm safe. But the knight is not really defended. There's a lot of concerns I have right now. This pawn is defended. So that's what we're talking about, just constantly looking at... now I can't move the queen as the knight falls. Can't move the knight. The trick is he's eliminated, so he now picks up a free pawn. But I might be able to get some infiltration here. I was hoping to stick my queen here and try to force the queen trade, because if the queens come off the board, I'm up 2 pawns. That puts me in a really good position going into an end game. But as long as the queens are on the board, those two pawns, the queens are just too hard to judge. Queens can do too many things, and it's hard. I don't have enough processing power to calculate exactly where the queen could go to cause a lot of headache for me. Now my opponent's running down on clock, so that's good for me. But there is that 5-second increment, so they've got plenty of time to be able to make moves. Yeah, that's what they want to do. Okay, that's a good one. What if I do this? That's a strong move, right? Now I'm expecting my opponent to do something like this, maybe. See if we can get that queen trade now. I'm gonna go ahead and pre-move this, because if my opponent captures with the queen, that's my only legal move, is to take it. Having my pawns on dark squares blunts the his dark square bishop. I'm threatening to take a pawn. This pawn is probably lost, but the nice thing is I do have it defended pretty well. If my opponent were to grab it with his bishop, I'm just going right back. So a slightly different move. I don't want my opponent to get a draw just yet. Not when they're so low on time, and I've got an extra pawn or two. I'm not ready to give in to a draw just yet. Did not see that coming. That could pose a problemo. Check, and then I can go here. Defend both of these. Okay, I'm assuming he's going to come with check, and then I can sneak up here. My opponent might run out of time. No, okay. Now I have to keep an eye on something like this. So what if I were to... Opponent's only legal move is to move here, and then I can grab with check and then pick up the bishop. He brings the queen. Should be okay. I don't have this anymore. I have to go back. I have to stop the rook's influence. Remove that to give me a couple of seconds back. No. Now we're threatening here. And there we go. So I'm going to give my opponent a good game. Well played, because that was a good game. And we get the win. Hurrah. All right. So take a quick now we're the words. Let me grab a quick sip. Water. Now that we've finished our game, let's take a little bit to evaluate what actually happened. So we can go back and we can talk about this move here. First off, is this a good idea or not? Was this even worthwhile? Should I have done something completely different? Like I said, my opponent is right now about to capture here. So what happened? Let me put the analysis on real quick. So what happened if they were to, let's say I just continue developing like normal. If they grab, one of the things that I know about the Ruy Lopez is when your opponent grabs the knight there, this is one of the few times where it's better to go to capture away from the center. The idea that you want to open up your queen so that if my opponent now grabs this pawn, I can jump up here and attack both the pawn and the knight. Your opponent most likely would retreat the knight somewhere, and then you can pick the pawn back up. Now, it comes with check, which is nice. So most likely your opponent's going to block with their queen. Now, my queen is defended, so I could probably castle and be okay here. My opponent threatens my queen or something, I can grab. Let me turn the engine on. Because my bishop, at the end of the day, my bishop is under attack. Okay. So maybe not castling here. Yeah, maybe just grabbing. Okay. And that forces the opponent's king into the center of the board. They no longer have castling privileges. Then I can castle. Nope. 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 Can't castle because I still have an undefended. What I tell you? Undefended pieces. See? Undefended pieces. So I've got to remember to keep an eye on my undefended pieces. So, oops. So let's figure out where we could put this bishop. Stop. Where this bishop could go. So we see that the arrows are telling us any one of these squares is appropriate. And that's pretty much every square available to the bishop. Me personally, I'd probably go here, just because that's where I'm used to sticking it anyway. And then your opponent can do whatever they need to do. Castle, and then they can continue on with their life. So something like that could work. So in this case, I did not need to, let me turn this off. In this case, I did not need to push this pawn. So pushing this pawn was unnecessary because of this queen trick. Now, this doesn't work if instead of pushing, if my opponent, let's say I'd done this, if my opponent had defended this pawn, and then they capture, this queen trick no longer works. Because when the knight moves back, first off, it's attacking the queen. Second off, that pawn is defended, so that doesn't work. But from here, it still works because there's nothing defending this pawn. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the game at hand. Where else was a place that we talked about? Yeah, right here was bring the queen. The engine says I have a bit of an advantage. I could have grabbed that pawn right then and there. Doesn't that allow for my opponent to grab here? Because I also have a double attack. That's why. Okay, yep. So My opponent has a double attack on this pawn, but if I grab, I have a double attack on this pawn, and it would come with check, which gives me the initiative back. Okay. So no, I didn't need to add an extra defender. Could have improved there. Where else was a place that we talked about we could improve? Right here. Was stealing this pawn a good idea? Yes, it was, but come with the knight instead of the bishop. It's still it's still okay, but yeah, it was, I mean, a point and a half of material that if I'd grabbed with the knight instead. Why? I don't see the difference. I don't see the difference, so I don't know. All right, I'm gonna back up. Turn the engine off. Let's see, where else? One last thing, and then we'll call it a day. This rook lift felt ugly, didn't it? Wow, the engine says I'm overwhelming ahead. Rotate the knight around. And then what? Didn't I grab here? Oh, because I was afraid of this. This. Oh, but that's right. This comes with check. And then, wow, it says even give up the rook. Because there's a mating pattern there. Wow. Okay. So this symbol means there's a checkmate in 4 moves. The minus sign means it's for black. A plus sign would be for white. So like a +4 is good for white. A -4 is good for black. Wow. See, I was thinking maybe something like this. Defend that. And then even if captures, yeah, I can capture back. Still defend that. Okay. All right. So I need to go study my checkmate pattern some more. I was thinking that this pawn would be an issue, but it really wasn't. Still have an overwhelming advantage somehow. Yeah, and then now we're getting close to this end game, and this end game is not my strong suit. I really feel like my opponent should have grabbed this pawn at some point in time. I don't know why they didn't. Boy, the engine hates that move, doesn't it? Defend and remove yourself from the pin. Yeah, that would have probably been better. All right, I'm just scanning through real quick. Yeah, I was looking for a queen trade. And see, the advantage is sliding away because I'm making poor moves. Double attack, but I still got it defended, so... I'm not certain. I'll have to study this game a lot harder. So this is a debate I was having. Notice it's attacking their queen while attacking my queen at the same time. Now, the difference is if he grabs, I can grab. And then let's say he retreats. I can grab with check. Okay. And pick up another pawn in the process. That's the difference. Okay. So you want to be careful on these kind of moves where you're making this kind of even trade, because what happens if this happened to come with check, right? If this comes with check, I don't get to respond by taking back the queen. I would get to respond by moving my king out of the way, or let's say capturing that rook, and then my opponent gets to walk away with their queen. So he's traded a rook for my queen. you know, a 5-point material for a 9-point material, they've done a good job. So I'm always a little leery of these kind of, you know, you're threatening my piece, so I'm going to threaten your piece right back. They work. They obviously work, but just have to be real careful. Yeah, this was a 6-point material swing I missed. Look at this. The engine says I'm 8 points ahead, and now I'm 2 points ahead. That's a massive swing that I missed. Yeah, and this was where if my opponent had put the had gone here, that almost forces a queen trade because I can't grab that free bishop anymore. I probably would have traded. Yeah. Just bank my two pawns. Now at this point in time, it's basically watch out for the rook and bishop, but walk my 2 pawns to victory. I mean, not that easy, but that would be the goal. All right, so I pick up a free bishop, and at this point in time, yeah, it's overwhelming on my side of the board. I have a whole free piece plus 3 pawns. I missed checkmate, y'all. I was so worried about my opponent having checkmate. I didn't even see that. I hope you guys saw that. I hope you guys were looking out for me and saying, hey, you've got a queen or a rook cutting off the whole second row. A queen or a rook on the first row creates that ladder checkmate. And I hope you guys saw that, because that would have been an easy checkmate right there. Instead, my opponent made me work for it. But yeah, at this point in time, this game is pretty much over. I have all this extra material. But yeah, I can't believe I missed checkmate in one. Oops. There's still a forced checkmate in 4. But I'm just so worried, because if I make a wrong move, it swings the other way. Yeah, that's checkmate right there. Boom. So, cutting off that, you know, it just pays to show that, you know, no matter how many times you study these things, you're going to miss stuff. So I missed that one pretty big. All right, everybody, this was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Go out, go play some chess, look me up, you know, invite me to a game or whatever. We'll play some chess together. Talk to you guys later. All right, bye.